Technology, it's supposed to make our life simpler. It's supposed to make things more convenient, but it can be addicting. However, here's the question. How far is too far? Hi, I'm Pastor Dave, and welcome to the final hour. I'm excited you're here with us today because we got a lot to cover in the field of technology, and it's unbelievable what's going on. But before we do anything, we are going to be in God's Word and use that to open up. In the book of Genesis, in Genesis chapter 11, verse 3, it's the story of the Tower of Babel. Now, most people understand the Tower of Babel. They were going against God. They were rebelling against God because he said to go throughout the world and to spread out in the world, and they all stayed there. They built this tower in rebellion. So, but in Scripture, Genesis chapter 11, verse 3, it says, "And they said to one another, 'Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly.' And they had bricks for stone and bitumen for mortar." Now, this is from the ESV, and that word bitumen is going to be very important. Now, in Genesis chapter 11, verse 6, it says, "And the Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them." So understand this. Human knowledge and ability, they had the knowledge and the ability to build a tower. Okay, God was okay with that, seems. And the Tower of Babel, what this does, it highlights the power and the potential danger that we have having such skill and knowledge. The advancement in technology, because the Tower of Babel really was technology in that day. And the advancement of technology, it can be used for good or it can be used to go against God. Now, innovation can lead to some incredible progress. We've seen that in technology, we've seen that in medical, we've seen that all over the world, but it has to be aligned with God's purpose. That's just the bottom line. We have to have technology aligned with God's purpose. It can't be used for prideful ways or for rebellion purposes. It has to be in line with what God says. Now, at that, let me go to Exodus chapter 31. It says, "And I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, with understanding, with knowledge, and with all kinds of skills, to make artistic designs for work in gold, silver, and bronze, to cut and set stones, to work in wood, and to engage in all kinds of craft." Exodus 31, verses 3 to 5. Now, in Exodus, God is giving the craftsman wisdom. He's given him skill to create the tabernacle. As we look at this passage in Exodus, the craftsman is demonstrating technical ability as a craftsman would, and he's using the gifts that God gave to him. God has given man gifts. We can all understand that, but they're to be used for God's glory, and they're to be used for God's pleasure, not to rebel against him. Now, both of these Bible passages, both in Genesis and Exodus 31, the technology is to honor God, not to become a God. This is huge because the day that we're living in, we still have technology. It's more advanced than what they had back then, but the purpose is still the same. It is to honor God, not to become a God. Now, I want to circle back to where I began in Genesis chapter 11, verse 3 for just a moment, because it said they use bitumen for mortar. Now, some of your Bibles may say they use tar or they use pitch, depending which version you have. But what is this? Bitumen is waterproofing. This is what Noah used on the ark to waterproof the ark. Now, think about this. What were they doing? They just came through the time of the flood. They are now going in rebellion against God, and they're building a tower. Not only do they want to build a tower up to heaven, but they're waterproofing it. Now, why would they do that? Well, what did God do? Last time God sent a flood. So if God wants to send a flood again, that's fine. You know what? We're going to waterproof our tower. God can't hurt us. God can't reach us. God can't do anything against us. We'll be greater than God. That's the heart that God understands and sees when he comes down and he confuses the languages. It wasn't just that they were trying to build something tall to get to reach heaven, which obviously they never could, but they waterproofed it. So says Genesis 11:3. They waterproofed it so when God sent the flood, and they didn't know that God wouldn't do that again. If God were to do what he just did, they're saying, you know what? We're better than that. He won't get to us. So what does God do? He comes down and confuses all the languages. If God sent another flood, they would be in trouble with that. So Technology, again, is designed to make life simpler for us and make life easier for us. It's there to help us. But what happens when technology reaches a certain level? Today on this show, I want to kind of go into some things in the technical field, which I am kind of banking on and believing that this is going to be the first time you're hearing about some of this, because it's mind blowing what we're going to talk about today. And really, when you get with technology, there's no plans to stop. They're going to keep going and going and going and moving forward. There's no plans to go backwards. I don't see anybody saying, hey, you know what? Maybe we've done all that we need to do. Maybe we need to take a step back. That's not going to happen with technology. In fact, there is great competition for dominance in the tech field, meaning, who is going to be the one to take the whatever technology to the next level? And you've got to take a step back and ask the question, okay, well, what is the next level? And some of the things we're about to talk about, again, it's mind blowing, because when you talk about the next level, you couldn't even conceive, this being reality, what they're trying to do. Well, no, I won't even say what they're trying to do, what they are actually accomplishing in the world of technology. Again, how far is too far? I think the world now is pretty much accepting the biometrics as far as technology. Facial recognition for both work and travel. People seem to be accepting that. When you look at people clocking into work, you can clock into work now with your fingertip. How do you have that time clock now is being used with your fingertip? And I'm going to cover that in just a moment. But we have satellite warfare, things being fought out in space. We have weapons being done for war where there's no humans involved. All of this because of technology. Now, here's some of the things I want to talk about. I'm going to need you to really kind of think about this. What about brain-computer interfacing? Our brains and computer interfacing, coming together, merging together. They are doing that now. And what about programmable matter? And what does that even mean? We're going to talk about that as well. Programmable matter. Here's the question I have too. When I teach at a university, and I make sure I tell my students, make sure you have boundaries. Boundaries define who you are. Have boundaries with your finances, have boundaries with your social life, what you will do and what you won't do, who you hang out with and who you won't hang out with. Have spiritual boundaries. Are you going to go to church, or are you going to serve in church? Completely different thing, just attending church and saying, you know what, I'm going to serve and be involved in church. So what are your boundaries? Who are you? And when I look at this technology, I just wonder, are we really beginning to break boundaries? Both man's and more importantly, God's. When you looked at the Tower of Babel, there's a boundary there. And God said they're breaking that now. When the technology is becoming like a God, and they're going to say, you know what, we can rebel against God and he can't do anything about it because we're going to waterproof our tower. That's when God says, time out. You're breaking a boundary. And God brings the judgment and he intercedes with that. So technology, again, it's supposed to make life easier. It's supposed to improve our lives. And in many ways, it does. We wouldn't have this time together without technology. So there's some wonderful advantages to it. But how far should we go? And again, biometrics is a great example, because people just are very much too accepting it. Many people receive the biometric technology without any kind of concern. I talk to people all the time. The TSA pre-check if you're traveling. Well, in order to do that, there's biometrics involved. And again, people at work, they're using biometrics at work to get into offices, to get into buildings. And people seem to have no concern about that. In fact, they seem to like it. It becomes simpler. That's what technology is supposed to do, people are thinking and saying. Now, here's a question I have that we really need to give some thought to. Now, let's think about this. How close are we to technological singularity? Now, those are two big words, but what does it mean? Technologically singularity, it was first used, believe it or not, in 1958. 1958, 67 years ago, the mind said, hey, will we get to the place where we have technological singularity? What this means, basically, it means, will computer intelligence ever reach the point where it passes human intelligence? That's what that is. A mathematician 67 years ago came up with that terminology. So people have been thinking about things. It was called science fiction. What if we ever do this? What if we ever do that? And people say, well, that will never happen. Almost 70 years ago, people were asking the question, will we ever get to the place where computer intelligence, AI, will supersede human intelligence? And folks, I'm very concerned because what we're seeing now is getting close to that. Let me show you a chart right here. Let me put this graph on the screen for you. This chart, this graph is going to show you the curve, the technological curve with AI and how it has gone up so rapidly. When you look at this, once we hit 2020, the decade of the 2020s, you see this curve going up, and it's there's no end to where it's going up. The trajectory of AI increases dramatically as you look at this graph, this chart on here. Do you see, again, 2020 this was a change because AI started to become where everybody has access to it. We all don't understand it. We're all not using it yet, but it's becoming more and more common. People are trying to use it in business. People are trying to use it in education. It's going everywhere. So you see where that trajectory just shot up. That's huge. It takes me back to 1984. 1984. I'm a huge reader, but not a big reader of novels. But there's one novel that's called Neuromancer. And this is the novel here. This was written in 1984. And again, it's a novel, but what it talks about, there's an employee who he has a run-in with his boss, basically, and his boss uses technology to cripple his nervous system. Now, because his nervous system is crippled, he is not able to go into cyberspace. Again, this is 1984. What is cyberspace in 1984? It's science fiction. But now this employee can no longer get into virtual reality. What is virtual reality in 1984? Well, this novel talked about it. And what they called it, believe it or not, was The Matrix. 1984, this book calls virtual reality The Matrix. You may have seen the movie, The Matrix. Yes, that movie is based off of this novel. Now, what he does to get back at his boss, he forms an idea and he works with some other people to go in and to steal 2 AI robots. AI robots, what is that? It's science fiction. Again, 1984. This novel is a book about a future where the lines between human and machines blur. Where do we separate human and machines? We have man and computer. Well, this novel takes man and computer and it brings them together. The lines are blurred. And people said, yeah, well, that will never happen. And again, this book was the inspiration for the movie The Matrix. So here's the big question. Is this science fiction novel from 40 years ago, is this real world technology for us now? What was science fiction back then, looking at this, is this now real world life? And I think it is. Now, when you look at how commonplace things are, let me just go through a couple of headlines with you. Let me just show you how commonplace things are now, where people are assuming they can do some things. This first headline, this first article I want to bring up is in Chinatown in New York City. Now, in Chinatown in New York, a landlord wanted to install biometric entry into the apartments. So you're going to rent an apartment. In order to get into your apartment, you would have to have biometrics, whether it be a palm print, a fingerprint, or an iris scan. Now, the city said, no, he couldn't do that, but he just assumed that it could happen. Now, it was in Chinatown. This does take place in China. So I don't know the background. I don't know the relatives. I don't know if he came out of China himself, but to him, that was just something that would be very well acceptable, but it was denied for now. We'll see what happens in the future. The next one this is unbelievable, where people are accepting this, but for the first time, a United States company is implanting microchips in its employees. Now, this has happened over in Europe. It has happened over in other countries, but now in America, a company says, hey, let's not use keys. Let's not use ID badges. Let's not use cell phones or smartphones. Let me put a microchip in your hand, and that will be how you get in and out of the building. This happened in River Falls, Wisconsin. And the way this company put it out there to employees, they said over 50 employees volunteered, said, hey, that sounds great. We will do that. And for this company, I'm not going to mention the name of the company, but for this company, over 50 employees was more than half of the entire staff. Then the company came back and said this. It said these chips cost $300 each. But however, the company says they're willing to pay on behalf of the employee. All right, time out. You want to put tracking technology in my hand for your company, and you think you're doing me a favor by you paying for it. So you can track me basically now 24/7. And the company came back and said, well, if the employee quits or is let go, we will take the microchip out, as if that's going to be okay. But do you see where people are saying, I'm accepting this? Biometrics, no problem. Technology like this, no problem. It opens the door to go even deeper, deeper into rebellion against God. Remember, technology cannot become a God itself. And we're on the path of doing that. Implanting microchips become more convenient for employees. When did we ever think that putting tracking technology into our employees is acceptable? When did we cross that bridge? Again, humans and computers coming together, blurring the line. There is no separation now. They're one and the same, and it's being accepted that way. I was talking to as I was talking about this and preparing for this time with you, I was bringing up biometrics. And I had a college student tell me, well, that's how they clock in at work. And I went, well, tell me about that. Now, I'm not going to mention the school. I'm not going to mention the restaurants, but this student, and I confirmed it with a couple other students since then, this student works at a restaurant on a university campus. And the way that they log in, they clock in to get paid is with their fingerprint. They walk in, they put their fingerprint in. When they clock out, they put their fingerprint out. There's no time cards, there's no signature. It's all done with the fingerprint. And when I talked about biometrics, they said, well, of course, that's how we do it. It was just routine. So I researched this. It's Sodexo is the name of the company. I'll put something here on the screen for you to see this. And Sodexo is doing this across America. Now, in the church, I'm a pastor. So I pastor Standing Stones Church in Phoenix. So we don't have biometrics to get into our building or for any of the staff. We don't have that. So I was surprised that this becomes the clock. This is the time clock to get paid. You want to get paid, put your fingerprint in. When you're done, put your fingerprint in. That stops the pay period. It's amazing how much this is being accepted. Again, technology, computers, and humans. The lines being blurred, and we're welcoming it. We're accepting it. Another one I want to bring up is the fourth one is Bill Gates is funding wireless remote control injectable birth control devices. This started in 2014, so 11 years ago. They had this concept. They started working on it, and basically with a syringe, what they want to do is they want to inject what they call a microcrystal self-assembly chip into women. And what this does, it makes them infertile. You talk about the World Economic Forum, you talk about depopulation, you talk about the elite, some of the plans that people have and some of the things they want to do. Well, here's an example of that. This is a way to make a woman infertile by implanting this birth control device. And I'll show you a picture here from the article itself. We have reaching a point. Now, those are some things where I'm saying this is some technology that people are just okay with. There's no concern. They are just saying, yep, that's just how you do it. You want to get paid, you put your fingerprint in. You want to have this, you get that done. You want to travel, you do a biometric scan. You want to rent an apartment, you have biometrics. And people seem to just not have any concerns about this. So where does it go next? Where is it people go, well, that's kind of weird. Where do people start to question technology? And folks, we have something. The world now has a CL1 computer. I am going to take my time with this. I'm not going to do it on this show. I'm going to come back on a future show and talk about this. What this is, and again, to us, if I tell you this, it's going to sound like science fiction. But I can tell you this is actually being done now. What is the CL1 computer? This is putting human brain cells in a dish and allowing them to think and multiply. human brain cells and some silicone and making a computer out of it and being able to think. What they did is they put the brain cells in there, and then they hooked it up to the old Atari game Pong. And again, I need to take time and walk you through this because it's absolutely, I don't know if it's amazing or disgusting. It goes both ways with this. The inventor here is pondering the ethics of this, the ethics of wiring the human brain tissue, human brain into computers. We're going to take tissue, cells, and we're going to wire them into computers, and they're going to think and they're going to react, and who knows where it goes from there. Once it comes out of a computer and goes into a robot, then what do you have? You have that singularity where the technology it supersedes human intelligence. So I will come back later on and do a deep dive on this one. Research merging human brain cells with AI. So AI, what comes after AI? Now, I don't know about you, but a lot of people are just really understanding AI and what they can do with it, using Chat GPT, those type of things, understanding that they can do artwork with it or they can write things with it. And education, the schools, universities are starting to use this. Businesses are using it. So, but what comes next? And believe it or not, it's not coming next. It's already here, and it's been here for a while. The major tech companies are already there. And what's coming next is called quantum computing. Quantum computing solves problems that AI can't even touch. And you and I are looking at AI and go, this is so amazing. But again, AI is limited, believe it or not, on what it can do. And this is where the next step is quantum computing. IBM has a quantum system that is now on a university campus. There's one, as of right now, there's one university in Troy, New York, where IBM has put a quantum computer on their campus because they want the university students to understand this and to grow in this. I'll give you a few photos here to show you what this looks like. And this is from the university campus in Troy, New York. AI is great at recognizing patterns, but it hits a wall when it tries to deal with complex simulations. So it can't simulate things, but it can recognize patterns. That's why it's able to give you answers to questions that you have. It will go out and search things and come back and have patterns. But quantum computing can actually put together simulations. It can simulate real life. And that's what's coming next. For examples, Google has a quantum processor. And what does that do? Well, they estimate it takes about 6 seconds to solve some problems that would take a supercomputer 47 years to figure out. So AI supercomputers, what that have to put a complex problem in there, it would take it decades to figure out. The quantum processor, which Google has, can do it in seconds, not hours, not minutes, but seconds. China has a quantum satellite network. What is this? Well, it's able to, what they say, transmit unhackable messages using what they call quantum entanglement. So their messages can't be hacked, which means other nations, other governments, if they're spying on other nations, spying on other governments, any messages they send out cannot be hacked. That's what they're claiming. Then you have medical, the drugs breakthrough in medicine. There is a company out there that is personalizing medicine. It's not that we have a disease, a plague, an illness that we need to get medicine for. Now they are personalizing medicine to your own DNA, which means they take your DNA, they have access to your DNA, and they make medicine specifically designed for you. So when you go to the pharmacy, you have your own personal medication. Now, for some, that may sound amazing, but again, look at the other side of the coin. How dangerous can that become? Where can that go wrong? What can they do with that kind of technology? So again, IBM and their quantum computer, and you have another company called Rigetti. Rigetti also has quantum computing, and they're thinking quite a bit about it. Rigetti has this line. Rigetti with their computer is saying, well, what's next? What's next in technology? And their answer is not upgrading the computer, not upgrading the technology. The next thing to upgrade is you and I. The next thing to upgrade is the user. Wow, how do we do that? What is that all about? Well, this is called brain computer interfacing, BCI, brain computer interfacing. I don't know if people type anymore, if they, if they use desktop, everybody's texting and so on and so forth, but they're saying that we can do a human upgrade now to you don't need to type. All you need to do is think about it. You can type 1,000 words a minute, 1,000 words a minute. How? By just thinking about it. And this computer would do that. The human upgrade, it's merging the human brain with machines. Again, going back over 70 years, when you have this time of the computer becoming greater, singularity becoming greater than the human mind. That's exactly what they want to do. Here's a headline: neurotechnology to address limitations in the human body. Why do you think we have limitations? Because God's designed us that way. But we're putting this computer in here. So it's supposed to, again, merge the human brain directly with machines. Now, last year, Neuralink, Elon Musk Neuralink, it made huge headlines because they got approval for the first human implant, if you remember that. They did that. Well, now that's old news. That's old technology compared to what they're doing now. There are companies now that are controlling our mind, our thoughts. Our thoughts are able to control computers. We can do things by just thinking about it. You know what? Let me show you a video. I'm going to show you a 3-minute video here. And this is Rodney. Now, Rodney is paralyzed. So in his case, what he's doing is amazing. But understand that when it works, so well for someone like Rodney, think what it would do when this becomes commonplace. Watch this. It's about 3 minutes. Watch this video.
When I turn up, you get going. At every stop, baby, oh, it's showing. If I should stay, you find a reason to leave. When I'm busy, that's the time you are free. Just tell me, what should I do? How can I get how can I get through? How can I get through?
All right, what do you think about that? He was able to turn on music. He was able to turn on his fan. He could feed his dog all by thinking about it because of the technology, merging technology with the human body. And you may look at that and say, that is so amazing. That is incredible. But again, in his case, yeah, it allows him to have a normal life. But what happens when we start doing that? They're saying now for the average person, again, you can write 1,000 words a minute by just thinking it. You think it, and the computer will write it out. Now, this is how far it goes. Again, is this science fiction? No, this is reality. What about memory recall? What is that? How often do you walk into a room and forget why you walked in there? Or you're thinking about something and you get distracted and you go back and say, what was I thinking about? Or you're having a conversation and you lose your train of thought. Well, what if that can be things of the past? What if we can bring technology in where you can recall your memories, where you won't forget anything? Would you sign up for that? Well, there's technology out there now where AI is able to retrieve forgotten memories on demand. They will implant this in your brain. And they're going to say, here's what go back. AI will tell you, what was I thinking? I forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah, AI will tell me. It will bring back your memories. Now, this is going to freak you out. Freak me out. Here's they say, what about shared experiences? We have the ability to do that. Transmitting emotions or skills directly to another brain. All right, so I will go out and I will jump off a cliff. And then my brain, my experience, what I experience, I will transfer to you. So you can sit on your couch and your brain will feel and understand what I just experienced. How far is too far? That's the whole point. How far is too far with technology? Shared experiences. You can see how crazy that will get and what people can do. And they're going to share that. Now, here becomes the ethical minefield. There's all kinds of minefields here, but here's the ethical one. If this happens, because once AI has it, your thoughts, your memories, whatever you have, your experiences are now on the cloud. So that's the only way we can share this. I can send my thoughts, my memories to the cloud, and your AI can download it from the cloud. That's how you share experiences. That's how you understand, okay, what was I thinking? I need to go pull it back from the cloud. Oh yeah, I wanted this. What happens to your thoughts? This may sound like a weird question, but who owns your thoughts? Once they're on the cloud, who owns your thoughts? And what is to stop what they call, it's a real word, brain jacking? Not carjacking, brain jacking. This is where hackers will be able to manipulate your emotions and your memories. Can you see how evil that gets? Can you see how evil that becomes? Now, I know some in the world think this is the coolest thing ever, but this is just downright, in my opinion, evil. There's an ethical minefield here where this can just explode in so many different ways. Now, this is how they're going to pitch it. They already had this technology out partially. It's called a Muse headset. I'll show you a picture of it here. And how they're pitching this is this will allow your brain to really focus. If you feel like you just can get kind of foggy, you need to focus. Well, this will allow you put this on, it will allow you to focus. What this is doing is brain tracking. How do you do this? You're going to put this Muse on, and they're going to tell you this will provide real-time brain tracking. They'll tell you that's what it's doing. But the sales pitch, it's going to help improve your focus and keep you calm. Well, who does not want to have better focus and be calm? That sounds pretty good. It says it's going to, you will stay engaged longer and you will have reduced distractions. You won't be distracted. You're going to be more engaged. You're going to be more focused with this. You're going to be able to find your calm. Okay, I need this. So let me put this on. How do they do that? Well, they're telling us straight up, they are brain tracking you. Again, your thoughts go to the cloud. Folks, you can't, as our friend Tom Hughes used to say, you can't make this stuff up. It's crazy what's going on. Now, if that wasn't enough, let's talk about programmable matter. I don't even know what that means. What is that? Programmable matter. This is material that changes properties on demand. So what if you have a cell phone, a laptop? What if you want to combine them? What if you want your cell phone to be a laptop or your laptop to be a cell phone? Or what about a TV? I want my laptop to be a TV. Well, it can change right now. How do you do that? I'm going to show you a video here where this is being done now. They have this technology. They're still working on it, but they have this technology where a physical device can morph into something else. This is what's called programmable matter. Matter is something that's physical. It's called Claytronics. Claytronics is programmable matter. It merges robotics with computer science. Now, what exactly is this? You have to imagine tiny, tiny robots, microscopic robots. They work together to form a shape that you desire. So I've got 1,000 different tiny little robots here, and I want to make a bottle. I want to make a toy car. I want to make something out of this. And what it does, these millions of little robots that are called cotones, cotones, that they create 3D objects, physical things, three-dimensional objects, but they can change. They can change shape, they can change color, they can even change texture. So your couch can become a different type of furniture. Your furniture can change on demand by doing this. These things rearrange themselves. That's what Claytronics is about. Basically, to quote them, they're saying computers will eventually have the ability to move around, communicate with each other, change colors, connect to each other to form different shapes. That's what Claytronics is. They're working on this. They have things they got already done. They're still trying to work out some of the things, but they're basically taking something that will mutate any objects. Now, here's the scary part. It can also replicate human beings. Now, this is three-dimensional, so it's not a hologram. We have holograms. Now, this is the next level. I asked you early on, we have this great race to get to the next level. What's the next level of a hologram? It becomes something like this, Claytronics. Let me show you 2 videos that are about 3 minutes each. We'll kind of give you a background and a picture of this. So watch this first video.
The objects you have will be infinitely more flexible. A chair will morph into a chaise or anything else you want through a new technology known as Claytronics.
Claytronics is essentially going to create a new media type. Way back from the telephone, we've had audio, which allowed us to send voice. And then we had video, which allowed us to send voice and pictures. So with Claytronics, the idea is we could send not just sound and picture, but actually the 3D shape itself.
Seth Goldstein, a professor at Carnegie Mellon, is one of the developers of Claytronics.
Claytronics is a form of programmable matter. It's a collection of sub-millimeter computers, essentially.
These tiny programmable computers are called CADMs, Claytronic atoms. Just like atoms are the building blocks of everything in the universe, CADMs are the basic units of Claytronics. Put enough of these CADMs together, give them a command, and they can assemble themselves into just about anything you want.
Imagine that each one of these little pieces of lead is a CADM, a Claytronic atom. So it's a computer that can move around, communicate with other computers, change its color, and then it works together with all the other units to perform some global effect.
One of the challenges of Claytronics is keeping these mini computers attached to one another.
In all of these robots, we're using electrostatic forces to hold the robots together. This is the same kind of thing that happens when you take a balloon and you rub it on your hair and you put it on the wall.
Then there's the challenge of figuring out the right program.
One of the ways to view the programming problem of Claytronics is how we get what I call ensemble behavior. Getting all of the individual units to cooperate together to perform a global task.
If Professor Goldstein can pull it off, the results will be amazing.
The objects made out of Claytronics will be able to form lots of different shapes.
And the more of these mini computers there are, the larger the objects that can be manipulated. That's how your furniture will be able to do double duty, adapting to your needs. With Claytronics, the art on your walls could be changed depending upon your mood. Your cell phone could turn into a laptop, and when your work is done, back into a phone. But its most extraordinary application is how Claytronics might revolutionize communication.
One of the main goals of Claytronics is to improve human-to-human communication, even when two people aren't in the same room. So you can imagine having a call in the future where you pick up your phone and you dial someone, and instead of just hearing their voice, you see them sitting across from you. Of course, they're made out of Claytronics. They're still where they were originally. And that way you can have a very real experience of being in the same place with somebody. It's voice, picture, and touch.
All right, so what did you think about that? Did you see how the couch turned into a lounger and so on and so forth? Did you see the end where someone was talking to somebody in the room, but they appeared? Again, three-dimensional. Now, you're going to say, okay, I don't understand this. I'm going to show you one more video. Again, this is a 3-minute video, and it's technical, but it's going to show you how these tiny, small little robots are programmable and what they do. So again, this is more from the tech side, just so you can get kind of a visual picture of what this looks at. So let me show you this second video.
Welcome to 15-Minute Discourse. Are you ready to have your mind blown? Today, we're diving deep into programmable matter.
Which most people know as
Claytronics.
Claytronics, right?
And you've sent us some fascinating sources on this. We've got academic papers, we've got patents.
Even military reports. It's really cool. It's a diverse set of information on this topic.
Let's start with the basics. What is Claytronics? How would you explain this to like someone who's never heard of this before?
So Claytronics is basically like making matter, but making it out of tiny robots. And this differs from like typical modular robotics because it's not about building like a single complex machine. It's about creating like a new type of matter that can just like software be programmed. And so like Goldstein talks about this in one of his papers, and he uses this word Pario.
Pario.
Yeah, it's like a physical, real-world version of computer graphics.
So we're talking about like
holograms.
a hologram, but I can touch it.
Yeah, you can touch it, exactly.
So that's Claytronics, and it's made out of these little robots called Kadums.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit more about these Kadums. I'm looking at this programmable matter final report, and these things are incredible. They have their own CPU. They can communicate. They even have like a tiny display.
Yeah, so each one of these tiny robots has all of these capabilities packed in. And if we look at like Nyan's thesis and Goldstein's paper, we see that like one of the biggest challenges is just powering them and getting them to move and stick together.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty hard if these things are like super tiny.
Well, the goal is to get them down to like a micrometer scale, like smaller than a human hair.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So like how do you even begin to power something that small?
Well, there are different approaches, but one of the ideas that they talk about is wireless power transfer.
Interesting. So like we're beaming energy to these things? Wow. Okay, so we've got these Kadums that can move, they can communicate, they can stick together. How do we get them to actually form like a 3D object? Like how do we go from a swarm of Kadums to like a table?
So there's this concept called decentralized control, where instead of having like a central brain controlling every single Kadum, they follow local rules based on their interactions with their neighbors.
Oh, so it's kind of like ant colony. So each individual ant isn't very smart, but together they can build these incredible structures.
Exactly. And that's the same principle that's at work here with Claytronics.
That's so cool. And it makes sense because if you have millions or billions of these tiny robots, you can't possibly program each one individually.
Exactly. It just wouldn't be feasible.
So we need them to be able to figure things out on their own based on their local environment.
That's right.
I'm starting to understand how this all comes together, but I have to ask, how do we actually manufacture these Kadums? I mean, we're talking about microscopic robots with their own CPUs and displays. That seems pretty far out there.
It is challenging, but one of the techniques that they're looking at is microfabrication.
Okay.
Just like how we make computer chips today.
Like photolithography and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. They're using techniques like that to create these incredibly small.
All right, again, that was a technical side, but programmable matter, it's what it's called, has the ability to change its physical shape, thickness, density, all upon our request. Hey, I want my phone to be a laptop, or my laptop to be a TV. It's material that it can reshape itself and it can self-repair. That's the whole key to this as well. It has the ability to have 4D, not 3D. What's the next step on technology? Not 3D, but 4D printing, which means it can self-assemble. That's how it changes, from a car to this, or from a chair to a lounger, and it can adapt post-production. So once you make it, it has the ability to take on itself. What's the future impact for this? How are they going to sell this? Why would people want this? Well, furniture that can reconfigure itself. I want a couch today, but I have some guests coming over, so I need it to be a bed. Or I want it to be, as you saw in the thing, I want it to be a lounger with this. So people are going to say, well, that's pretty cool. That's one sales point they're going to do. How about military uniforms that we can put on our military that will stiffen if a bullet comes that way? So if a bullet's fired at them, they can have their clothing stiffen, possibly hard enough where the bullet won't reflect off of them. So that's what this can do. And what about medical implants? Any kind of implants you have, as your body begins to heal, the implant can change and adjust. These will all be things that they will be pitching the consumer, you and I, on, that we're going to say, that sounds amazing. But again, understand what's happening behind the scenes and how far it goes. They're talking about bacteria that can eat plastic. Well, isn't that great for the earth? Isn't that great for the environment? Bacteria that will eat plastic. Well, what about lab-grown leather? We don't need to slaughter animals anymore for leather. We can have leather that's grown in the lab because of this technology. Or what about self-fertilizing crops? That's one of the plans that they want to do. Again, some of this technology, I don't know about you, it just comes off as crazy, but it's real. It's there. The 2020s, remember that curve I showed you on the graph? When we hit the 2020s, in this decade, it has redefined technology. AI has changed everything, and AI is just the beginning. Some people just want faster, apps. I want to be able to stream my stuff faster. I want to be able to do this, but really what's happening here, folks, is technology is redefining reality. We're getting to the point to where we don't even know what's real anymore. And that's not new. We've had that for a while, to where AI could do things. I could put somebody, in a place. I could copy their voice. I could have them call you, and that you think they're talking to them, and it's not them. It's AI. So I could put you in a place that's criminal, or that ruins your reputation, and have photographic evidence, and have your voice. All that technology has been around for a while, and again, it could be used for evil. But now we're at a point to where we are just no longer able to define reality. So again, when you look at this, I wanted to take time with this show and say, back in the Tower of Babel, we learned that story sometimes in Sunday school, and all we think about was, well, God said to not do this, but they went against God and they rebelled. But it was the heart behind that, because they waterproofed the tower, saying, if God wants to bring judgment against us, he won't be able to. We will be greater than God. Technology can have some wonderful advancements. It can be wonderful as far as medical purposes and things like this. But technology can't get to a point to where it becomes a God. And when you get to the place where you're redefining reality, I think we're getting there. Now, I want to end with one more story, because I want to show you, again, it kind of comes down to the heart. When you look back to the Tower of Babel, it really reveals the heart of the people who are building it. It wasn't just that they wanted to say, hey, we have the skills to do this. It wasn't just so much the rebellion that we're going to do it. It was the fact that they waterproofed it, they built it, they went against God because they were saying, we don't want or need God. And it was a heart issue when I look at the Tower of Babel. And I say that because I want to bring one more article up and close with this. In April of this year, April 14th to be exact, in North Carolina, there was a school board meeting. At the school board meeting, one member of the school board made a motion. She said, can we open all our school board meetings with prayer? Now that's, again, North Carolina. They said, can we do this? And what happened was, one of the ladies on the board kind of got upset with that, and quote, she said, how much prayer do you need How much God do you need? How much God do you need? Why do we need to bring God into the school board? Why do we need to bring prayer into the school board? Do you see the heart issue? What if they say, hey, we got decisions to make. We're responsible for children, we're responsible for staff, we're responsible for the community. Can we bring prayer in? No. How much God do you need? This is where technology is taking us. We're going to have technology and we're going to ask the questions, well, do I even need God? This is what I have. I have the ability, the skills to do this. I have the technology to do this. So I don't need God. This thinking, we used to call it science fiction. This thinking, the evil plans have been around for centuries. But now we have technology. Technology has caught up with the evil mind and thoughts of people to where they can implement the evil thoughts. We are in a very dangerous place as far as our world. We can see it that way. Now, I look at it too, and I say, you know what? On the bright side of this, it just means the rapture is even closer. At what point is God going to intervene like he did with the Tower of Babel? At what point did he say, stop, enough? You know, that's, I think, when God intervenes and he calls us home, and he brings us home, and the rapture happens. And shortly after that, we get into the tribulation period, and then we have the millennial, and then we have eternity, a brand new heaven and earth. It's going to be amazing. So I look at this stuff and say, folks, we can't, I don't know how we can survive 10, 20 more years. I'm not even sure we can survive. I don't want to put timing on it, 5 years, 10 years. We are so, what we have at our fingertips right now is so evil and so ungodly and so unrighteous. I just don't know how much more patience God will have with this world. So I'll leave it at that. All right, as I end, I always like to, offer you something and say, hey, I want to resource you. We have our conference coming up in 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, we have the conference here in Phoenix. Now, I need to tell you, we are sold out. So to be in-house, to be present for the conference, we are sold out. We got Tom Hughes coming. We got J.B. Hickson coming. We got Brandon Holhouse coming. We got Patrick Wood coming. I will be able to speak as well. And we have a surprise guest coming. But to be in-house, to be present here, we are done. We are sold out. So I don't want you to miss out. I'm going to ask you to live stream this. Go online, go on Interpreting the Times, and we'll put the link here. Go on Interpreting the Times and download the link and sign up to live stream it. And then you have 30 days access. This is Friday, June 6th, and Saturday, all day Saturday, June 7th. So if you're busy or out of town on that day or those days, you can watch this up to 30 days afterwards. So please go online and download it. Now, if you do that, what we're going to do is I'm giving away a DVD for those who are present here, but I'm going to allow you to download the study guide with this. This is a study guide. We're going to give it to you for free. Now, with this study guide, this again is almost 50 pages. We deal with end times. We talk about what role does Islam play in the end times? We talk about this in this. What about Moses at Mount Sinai? People think, well, he just got the 10 Commandments. No, he got much more than that. He got the sacrifice system and the Sabbath and the festival times and the priesthood. He got everything that sinful man needs to come before a holy God in worship. The place, the how, the when. Moses got all that at Mount Sinai. We go into detail on that. Did Jesus ever give any type of hint that he's coming back twice? He did. We talk this talks about that. 9/11, not 9/11, 2001, 9/11, 1683. What about that date? The Battle of Vienna. 9/11 was not a random date. It was picked for a reason. And we talk about 9/11, 1683, and the Battle of Vienna. Iraq. Do you realize how much Iraq is in the Bible? We'll give you a whole list of what happened there. What is the evil scheme of Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 10? There's an evil scheme talked about that. We're going to explain that. And what's the Jewish expectation of the Messiah? People, especially when I go to Israel, we have an Israel trip coming up in March of 2026. But when I take people to Israel, people go, don't they know where they live? How come the Jewish people aren't accepting Jesus? The Holy Land's only 2% holy, only 2% Christian. So I will break down. There's 9 Old Testament expectations that the Jewish people are looking for in the Messiah. and we break that down. So this would be absolutely free. It would be sent to you, I believe, as a download if you sign up to get the conference via live stream. So this is our resource that we want to get in your hands and give to you. So again, thank you for joining me for this program. I look forward to being back again in 2 weeks with you. I'm Pastor Dave. We have Standing Stones Community Church in Phoenix, Arizona. So if you're in the Phoenix area, would love to have you worship with us Sundays at 10:30. And also we have Interpreting the Times, which you can go online. We have a ton of material there to resource you. So either interpretingthetimes.com or Standing Stone Community Church in Phoenix. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Between now and then, I pray that everything you do is to glorify and honor God. God bless you.